Quality audit is a process. It has a structured methodology which we will be covering in this presentation to clearly understand how the audit process happens, what is the first step, what is the second step, and so on. What are the inner meanings for each step, what do we need to cover in each step, and how to make an audit a success. Hi, this is Jagdish Kumar, Master Black Belt 6 Sigma, American Society for Quality Certified Quality Practitioner, Lead Auditor ISO 9001, doing this presentation. Now coming to quality audit, the first and the foremost step involved is select audit agency. For example, if it is an internal audit, we select the employees of the same organization who are qualified to do the audit, but from an independent area. If the customer decides to audit the supplier, then supplier will have to allow the customer to come and do the audit. This becomes second party audit. Sometimes certification body may do the audit, or customer approved third party may come and do the audit. This becomes the third party audit. Also at times legal bodies also can come and do the audit. Then it becomes a second party audit again. So first we need to select the audit agency depending on what type of audit is going to be. The next step, the second step, is establish the purpose and scope of audit. The purpose of audit can be product audit by a customer, process audit, internal audit, external audit, certification audit, recertification audit, surveillance audit, and so on. This has to be fixed first. Scope of the audit should also be fixed. Means to say, which is the standard against which the audit is going to be done, whether it is going to be done as per international standards, say ISO, or whether it is going to be done as per the company standard, or whether it is going to be done as per customer standard which the supplier is supposed to follow. So first fix the standard according to which the audit is going to happen. Also fix the physical boundary within which the audit is going to happen. This is step number 2. Third step is do audit preparation. Audit cannot happen all of a sudden. There is good amount of preparation required. This will be a good checklist for that. Form audit team, whether it is internal, external, third party. Involving people who are knowledgeable, who have the knowledge of the standard against which the audit happens, as well as who are qualified as auditors with experience. Study business manuals or procedures. Quality manual is slightly old fashioned now, because one organization may have not 1 or 2 certifications. Nowadays they have 12 to 14 certifications. In such a case, if they write manuals for each standard, then there will be 13 to 14 manuals to refer, which will never be practically feasible in the organization. So they prepare what is called as a business process document, which if it is followed, all the requirements of 14 standards to which the organization is certified gets automatically followed. If such a manual is there, that has to be studied. Procedures of the company has to be studied, including the technical procedures. Assign audit team responsibility. This is the responsibility of audit team leader. For everything happening during audit, audit team leader is responsible. He assigns audit team the responsibilities, and he gives the right responsibility to right persons. That is called as do team organization. Now the preparation job is done. Next, fourth step is audit planning. Like, what is the type of audit to do, whether it is surveillance, or should we cover full clauses of the standard, full requirements of the standard, and so on. What is the reference standard as decided in preparation now needs to be compiled, and a checklist may have to be prepared from the reference standard. This activity happens during planning. What do you like to check? How many mandates of audit has to happen? For this, there is a guideline in ISO standard depending upon the number of employees in the organization. Resources needed have to be planned, like what will be the travel arrangement, what will be the stay arrangement, how the day-to-day travel is taken care, cabs and so on, and how within the organization travel is ensured for the auditors and so on. Auditors also can do upfront the document review, like it's not only the business process or quality manual, they may have to review the quality policy of the organization, some of the critical objectives of the organization, the scope document of the organization and so on. This can be done before they do the audit. So as we discussed, this can be checked. Compliance documents may have to be checked if there is a compliance requirement. For example, if I am exporting electronic item to US, there is a compliance requirement that my product should be UL approved. If such a case is there, whether UL approval has been taken, we may have to check. Contracts with customer may have some special requirements. For example, if somebody is doing naval equipment device, the item may have to conform to JSS Penta 5 standard. Whether such requirement is there in the contract, then whether it is adhered to, all these may have to be upfront confirmed by the auditors, including the logistic travel arrangements. Next, on the day of the audit, at the fixed time, opening meeting happens in the presence of top management and functional heads. What is supposed to be done here mandatorily, we need to cover here. Introduction of the audit team, introduction of the heads of the functions including the top management. Then the lead auditor will read out the scope as discussed in the previous slide and objectives, and he confirms from the top management whether they are right in their decision or in their approach. Say it is a surveillance audit or it is a certification audit and so on. Confirm communications means with whom any issue arises, it has to be discussed. Who is the guide and so on. What are the resources required during the audit, including maybe some of the confectionaries or refreshments and so on, or stationery items. Attendance has to be recorded in the opening meeting. Auditing departments have to be understood by the auditor team. Who will escort, who will be the guide has to be decided. Auditees have to be told that their areas are going to be audited. If there is any safety instruction or personal protective equipments to be worn by the auditors, all these have to be discussed and provided during the opening meeting. Auditor has to declare and give confidence to the auditing agency that confidentiality will be maintained. These are all mandatory requirements during opening meeting. It has great meaning as you can see here. Next is prepare and published audit timetable. Having understood the departments and organization structure during opening meeting, now the team leader, audit team leader along with the members prepares the audit timetable, which has to be published upfront so that the corresponding auditee personnel will be available at that point in time when they are going to be audited. Do documentation verification. Before getting into the departments, just after the morning meeting is wound up, call for all the major documents and do the document verification sitting in one of the offices. And once the documentation is complete to the satisfaction of the auditors, the next stage happens, which is the most critical stage, conduct site audit. As the auditor conducts the site audit, one major point has to be remembered here, that auditor will check the extent of implementation of the required standard. He is not there to do the policing as to see what are not implemented and find out the mistakes alone. That's why you would have seen in the closing meeting, the auditors start with what good things they found, then they'll get into what areas are there for improvement, what are the non-conformances. This positive philosophy of audit is not known to many people. Let us register in our minds now. While conducting the site audit, it is not based on perception of the auditor, it is purely based on the artifacts. It is only based on the objective evidences. Auditor has to collect the objective evidences to the maximum best clarity possible, so that he is not questioned or embarrassed during the closing meeting by the auditees, which may lead to auditor swallowing his own comments or withdrawing his comment. That is a defeat for the auditor by itself. If he had found something genuine, he need to collect the objective evidence to the fullest extent. This is another critical point during site audit. Organize artifacts, structure them into whether this falls under planning phase, whether this falls under do phase, whether this falls under check phase, or whether it falls under act phase of implementation of that particular standard in the organization. Accordingly classify, which will help them to further drill them down into the clause numbers against which these NCs or improvement requirements can be brought in. After organizing the artifacts, analyze and categorize findings to see under which clause and exactly under which subclause this non-conformance has to be brought in and published during the closing meeting. Also, we should remember here that minor NCs which are not repetitive can be there, but two minor NCs under the same clause, if they are found, then it becomes a major non-conformance, which may lead to the auditor organization recommending the certification body to suspend the certification, say ISO 9001 or AS 9100 under such typical cases. This also it is important to remember. Now, after the audit is done, findings are categorized, then they are classified into different clauses. Audit findings are written as audit reports. That's one portion getting ready. Once the auditors are ready at the fixed time, again closing meeting happens. This is also strategically very, very important. During the closing meeting, the auditor starts speaking with the thanksgiving to the auditee organization for all the difficulties and hospitality they have entertained. Again, the attendance list is captured. Audit objective is reiterated by the auditors, and scope also is reread for confirmation. This is a formal requirement, formality, they have to do this, though it looks like repetition from opening meeting. Reiterating and the restrictions and limitations of the audit. The auditor along with the team leader is supposed to clarify to the auditee organization during the closing meeting that this is only a sample audit. There may be similar non-conformances in other areas too, which we might not have captured. It is the lookout of the auditee organization to see whether similar non-conformances are there in other areas which the auditors might not have visited, and how to rectify them and see that the requirements of the standard is followed in all the departments. As I mentioned, the auditors start with good practices observed, then they will come with a statement. However, these are the audit findings, areas for improvement and non-conformances. They read them as the second part with the adequate descriptions. Then the auditee functional heads are given the opportunity to ask clarifications. During the clarifications, if something gets sorted out, that NC may be withdrawn. Otherwise, the auditor has a challenge here to clearly explain, and to the extent that it should be unambiguous. This is a NC and it is a genuine NC found in the auditee area. Then audit records are saved, including those sketchy findings and artifacts. Confidentiality declaration is again done by the auditor team that none of the confidential things will be shared outside. Then the formal audit reports are distributed as per the requirement, as agreed by client, as agreed by the auditee organization, as well as the customer if it's a customer audit. Audit reports are gathered by the respective area where the NCs were found. They do the audit corrective action plan and revert back with their plan, maybe on the same day of the closing meeting, or they may take one day. So initial action by the auditee department once the non-conformance is received is to prepare a corrective action plan and respond on the same day as the closing meeting or the next day, maybe through email. Once the corrective action plan is satisfactory for the audit team, they will now give the concurrence and ask for the real corrective action from the auditee groups. They will request for corrective action. Earlier what was submitted was only corrective action plan. Now plan is approved by an auditor, they are happy with that. Now they will request for real implementation of the corrective action and the reply. But during the closing meeting, if it is a certification audit or a recertification audit, it is a good gesture by the auditor team to announce to the auditees what is their final conclusion, whether they are recommending for certification, whether they are recommending for recertification. Every 3 years recertification has to happen because validity of the certification is only 3 years. Whether they will ask the certificate to be suspended, this generally will be announced in the closing meeting itself, so that the mental stress of the auditee team is reduced. Evaluate auditees response. This may happen within 2 weeks or maybe 1 month if the auditors agree. Means corrective action plan is approved, auditor has requested for corrective action implementation. Now the auditee department has implemented the corrective action. They have given all the feedback and the progress as well as the outcomes of corrective action in a report to the auditor team, maybe after 2 weeks or 1 month, which is verified by the auditors, evaluated by the auditors. If the closure plan after implementation of the corrective action is assessed and verified for effective corrective action by the auditors, now they will decide to close the audit finding. If not, sometimes they may ask for a revisit by the audit team. It is considered as bad. You may have to again arrange their travel, again they will visit, they will confirm personally whether the corrective action has been really and effectively implemented or not. Then only they will close the particular non-conformance. This is not a good scenario. A good scenario is where non-conformance should not happen at all. If non-conformance happens, the corrective action plan should be approved in one go by the auditor team within 1 or 2 days of audit. Corrective action implemented and the report given after 2 weeks or 1 month by the auditee team should be approved without any hassle by the auditor team. Revisit is the last option, which is not a desirable option. Maybe occasionally they may or rarely they may revisit, then confirm and then approve the corrective action. If that happens, finally the audit gets closed once corrective action is verified and approved by auditors. As you have seen, it is such a nice structured process internationally followed across all the 195 countries. The advantage is if I am a lead auditor in India, I can comfortably do the audit in any country also. Again, I request each one of you to subscribe to this channel. Many of you have been watching but forgetting to subscribe. There is a subscribe button below this video. If you press that, automatically you get subscribed. It is free of cost anyway. And I request you to press the bell icon so that immediately the notification comes to you once we release our next session or presentation. Please also give a thumbs up if you have liked this compilation and useful presentation done in a very structured way. You can revisit the contents here and have a checklist done or clarify your own points so that you are well equipped to be a better auditee and handle the audit better as well as be a better auditor also. I take this opportunity to thank you for all your support.